Dr. Kimberly Moffit, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm so excited.
Good. Well, yeah, Kimberly, you're really I'm excited to talk to you today because I'm a lover, man. Like that's kind of like I always describe myself as a lover. I'm definitely more of a lover than I am a thinker. And your specialty, you're a therapist by
Correct.
training, but your specialty is really centered around relationships and human behavior. Like that's which I guess a lot of therapy is centered on those things. But you in particular got your doctorate with very specifically focused on the emotional psychology of entrepreneurs. Did I get that right?
I did. Yeah, I did do that. Yes, you got it right. Absolutely. Um,
I
so
don't, what does that even mean? The emotional psychology? What other kind of psychology is there
well, as
besides?
entrepreneurs, we are really complex creatures, Dave. And it's actually so interesting because I was already a therapist as I was completing my PhD. It took 7 years to actually do. I did it in London, England, and I was traveling back and forth while growing my brick and mortar business here in Toronto, which was therapy clinics. But as I was
You
growing
got
my
what, five of those? Is that right?
I've got five brick and mortar
Yeah.
psychology clinics in Toronto.
Hmm.
So by the time I wrote my doctoral thesis, I probably had 15 employees by this time. So because I was, when you have your master's, you can start practicing. And so, but it took me many, many years to finish my PhD after that. So all this time I was growing my business and I was dealing with like those early stage issues of being an entrepreneur, hiring someone, firing somebody, people quitting, and all the stressful things that come with being a business owner and dealing with regulations and things like that. And so I went to my dad, who was a seasoned entrepreneur in his own right.
What was his business? What kind of entrepreneur?
So my dad is actually a pilot, and when I was born, he was a bush pilot in British Columbia. And he eventually went on to start flight training schools and trained nearly all of the cadets in Ontario over time. So
Hmm.
he had lots of brick and mortar locations as well for his flight training schools and many planes. So
Yeah.
even though we were in different businesses, and he sold that business a long time ago, but he always felt like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And so when I was going through the same thing as him many years later, I thought, oh my gosh, like I wonder if this is a common experience that I'm going through because I feel so alone and I feel tired and I can't talk to any of my friends about the experiences I'm having. I really wish I had someone to talk to. Even my therapist couldn't understand me, Dave. It was like nobody could understand. And at that time, I didn't even know that EO existed. I was all alone running this business. And so I thought, well, if only I could do some research to find out if everyone feels the same. And so I did a study that spanned all across Canada entrepreneurs, and I interviewed so many successful CEOs at that time. This was many years ago now, but I got to really understand what entrepreneurs go through. And it turns out that there are some really big things that we all experience that are really super common. So things like anxiety, feelings of isolation, feeling like you're on a roller coaster and you don't know when that's going to stabilize. And also like
Yeah.
distance from your partners. If you have a relationship, like feeling like you even even if you're together, you're lonely because you don't want to stress them out with the problems that you have. And so I very much went through that. I very much get it. And I feel like and that's why one of the big takeaways from my research was that things like I interviewed a lot of EO entrepreneurs, and it turns out that a lot of them had the best mental health because they were engaging with other people going through the same thing. And that was one of the biggest takeaways was if you're going through that isolation, find other people like you and just get together with them and talk about your issues.
Talk it out, man. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of the things you mentioned, though, to me, it just seems like normal life things, anxiety, the stresses we deal with. Like I would imagine, I hardly even remember. I was 30, which feels like forever ago when I officially became an entrepreneur. I was fired from my job. And before that, I was just a kid. So like to me, I went from being a kid to like having a real job as an entrepreneur. And in between was just this exploration period. But I would imagine like a lot of the feelings we have as entrepreneurs are very similar to the feelings like my friends have going into work at Fidelity. Like I mean they're at risk of getting laid off. They still have bills to pay. Um, but the alone thing is really interesting. And that's something I've heard over and over and over again from entrepreneurs in EO in particular. That before they found EO, they just felt like they were on an island by themselves. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're dealing with while some of those emotions I described might be the same, fear and anxiety and stress over money, there's a lot of stuff that's really unique to entrepreneurs and almost like acting. Like to me, entrepreneurship is a little bit like acting where you got to make something happen. You're a creator.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not just acting, but I think sometimes you have to put on a brave front, even when you don't know that it's going to be okay. And I think that, the anxiety that we found in my study was connected to people, I think in an everyday environment when you're going to a job and experiencing anxiety, that's one thing. Maybe I could get laid off, maybe my boss doesn't like me, but it's a whole different thing when you're carrying a team of 15, 50, 200 people, and you know that you're the one responsible to put food on the table for people other than yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's where the entrepreneurial anxiety really acts up. It's not just will I make it, but it's like, can I keep the ship going? And the types of issues and challenges that come up for entrepreneurs kind of far outweigh the typical day-to-day challenges of, an everyday person. So I do believe entrepreneurs are very special in that regard. And they almost have to face the world and deal with many, many problems all at once. And if they are not emotionally mature and regulated, they're not going to survive. And so,
Emotionally mature. Is that what you said?
yeah, and regulated, right? They need to know how
I'm
to regulate those high emotions and be able to deal with them, find a way, right, to deal with it quickly and be able to face everyone and say, guess what? It's going to be okay, even when you might not know that it's going to be okay.
Kimberly, I do not feel emotionally mature or what'd you say, grounded? What was the other word?
Emotionally regulated.
I'm so not emotionally regulated. I am certainly bound to fail as an
Oh
entrepreneur by
no.
that
Oh, we hope
definition.
not. We
Oh
hope
my
not.
goodness.
Oh my
So,
God.
but listen, a couple of the other things that this is a practice of mine. I get into the conversation before I even do the bio for that matter. But something I think is really interesting about you is, of course, your focus on entrepreneurship. But you're also very focused on relationships and dating and couples and marriage. You've got a bit of a social media following with 3 million followers across the platforms and a billion video views. Like, I don't care how you calculated that. That's an outrageous number of views. You're also like, these are my words, but I see you a bit as a pop culture psychologist, which I don't know if it's a compliment or not. It's certainly not an insult. It's just an observation. And I think that goes hand in hand with having 3 million followers. You've talked about things like and so I got this directly from your website, was tons of interviews on TV but I saw one about the correlation between pets and dating preferences, dog versus cat people and their characteristics. By the way, are you a dog person or a cat person?
I would say I'm a dog person, but I don't have a pet myself because I've got two little kids running around, so I feel like I can't handle anymore.
Oh man, how old are your kids?
My kids are 12 and 7, and yeah, they're very high energy and so
Not
much.
that little. Not that little. I had 3 kids and I don't even know how many dogs. So, but the relationship between the shapes of men's, did I get this wrong? The shapes of men's faces and the relationships they're in? Is that a
Absolutely.
real thing?
Yeah, it actually is, if you can believe that. So
I don't actually, but I'm gonna have to dig it. I didn't watch that video, but I'm very curious. You're kind of into dissecting some celebrity relationships, which I think is probably because people are interested in it. You get into dating red flags, and this is pretty cool. And this is a quote: "A hot new bombshell enters the villa on Love Island."
yes.
So you were on Love Island. And you were
Yeah,
the hot new bombshell that entered the villa.
I was not a bombshell on Love Island.
According to this, you were the hot new bombshell that entered the villa.
I love it. No, I was actually like really excited and honored to give advice on the Love Island
You
finale.
were an honored and excited hot new bombshell. Now, so let's just talk about that for a second. What was your role on Love Island? And this was in New York City, the taping of it, right?
Yeah, it was so exciting. I So obviously, Love Island USA has been huge in the USA, but Love Island UK, I don't know if anyone in here who's listening is a fan, but it's got a humongous cult following, and the UK version is kind of the original. And so they filmed the finale after show in New York City this year, and they asked me to come on and kind of dissect who I thought was going to win, just based on body language and behaviors. And so
Did you nail it? Did you get it?
yeah, I did. I went and it was so fun. It was so much fun. But the interesting thing for me was that I don't know if you're familiar with the franchise, but Love Island is extremely like they have so many episodes. So I had to catch up on like, I don't know, probably 50 episodes in order to go and do this filming properly and actually be educated enough to like make guesses. But I thought it was so much fun. And um, I think reality TV can be like a really great like stress relief for people and a great way to kind of reflect their relationships back to themselves. We can see ourselves in the characters sometimes as well. So I really had a ball doing it.
Well, it's also a surprisingly social activity. It's almost like a social TV show because I personally never really got into it. But a lot of people I know like have viewing parties or they talk about Love Island with their friends and it becomes like the real topic of discussion. So to me, it's almost like this interactive show
Yeah.
for the audience.
Absolutely. And I think with pop culture, I think a lot of our pop culture centers around relationships and, talking about celebrity couples or Love is Blind, things that happen that kind of make us say, wow, I would never do that, or wow, I would never want that in a relationship. And so I think that's what really led me to talk about relationship issues online. The way I got started actually was in 2014. I was doing a lot of like TV appearances, like on morning shows, and that's actually that cat and dog preference thing that was before 2014.
Mhm.
I was working with Match.com as one of their experts, and they actually conducted a nationwide study that showed like the pet owners and their dating preferences, and so that was a study that they did. But after that, I was feeling like I wanted to grow my own audience, and YouTube was just getting started. My brother is a huge YouTuber, Mitch from ASAP Science. He has 15 million followers across platforms.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at the time, I actually have a funny story of how I got into it. My brother and I were chatting and he said, Kim, I just made $5,000 to hold a Tim Hortons cup in a vlog. And I thought, wait a second, like I'm going on all these morning shows for free, and getting up at the crack of dawn to be on TV. And here you are growing your own platform, talking about issues that are meaningful to you and having the space to actually have deeper conversations than what you might get to do on a morning show. Now, I love morning TV, but this idea really intrigued me. And so, what I would do is, in between some of my therapy sessions, I would set up a little DSLR camera and a ring light that I had bought and just start answering dating and relationship questions and things that I thought were important. So, at the time, I was talking about things like how to spice up your marriage or how to deal with divorce or how to read someone's body language. And then what ended up happening was because YouTube was such a young platform at the time, it was a lot of like teenagers. It became very obvious that the audience that wanted to hear me talk was like all teenage girls. And so for a while they were going, "Oh, Kimberly, like answer questions about, how to tell if someone likes you, or this is my love situation. Can you help me decode it?" And for a while, I kind of resisted that audience. I was like, oh my God, like I'm already 30 at this point. Like, why are all these teenagers asking me for all these questions? But as time went on, I kind of surrendered to it because I realized like this is really what people want to know. And if I'm doing, I think sometimes in life we have a calling and we just have to answer that call, whoever might be at the door. And well, I always say online, like we don't choose our audience, they choose us. And at the time, it was very clear that the audience that wanted to hear from me was teenage girls. So I just really started to answer all their questions and do the videos I thought that they would love to see, and my following just exploded. So very much, I'm happy to talk about pop culture things online because I think I love to make psychology relatable. And even if you can tie it to something that somebody wants to know about or their own life, you can help them remember concepts in a way that's memorable. And so that's so much fun for me to create content that people can remember and maybe that it sticks with them.
Is that still your audience? I mean, generally speaking, I know you're a big part of your audience now is the EO community. I know you're talking to, you're doing the EMP thing, which if you're not a part of EMP, Entrepreneurial's Master's Program, is that what it is?
Yeah,
EMP
exactly.
is based on just on the outskirts of Boston. I think it's done alongside MIT.
Yeah.
And but anyway, you're part of that program this year, talking about expanding your social media presence. And so I understand your audience isn't completely teenage girls, but is it
Mhm.
still is there still a huge following of teenage girls, or is that a short window in time? Because I would admit teenage girls aren't teenage girls forever. They grow up, they go to school, they move on to other things. Has your audience changed over the years?
Totally changed. I mean, I still have my teenagers, and they still find me somehow. But I would say, like, over time, my audience has grown. I mean, everybody grows up, right? And with TikTok, what's really interesting about TikTok is that it does allow for more mature topics, but just real topics, and you can go a little bit more in depth than the YouTube space that I originally started in. And I love TikTok for that reason. It's just more gritty and it's more casual. And so I think when TikTok really exploded, I jumped over there and started making content as well. And it was so much fun to do short form. And so I would say my audience now really spans like all of womanhood. I do have some guys in there as well. But I would say the girls are kind of like my core audience. And I just love it. I feel so connected.
Well, as of a couple days ago, you got one more middle-aged white man following you.
I love
And
it. I love
and
it.
uh and so I haven't gotten through all of your posts. I'm not a TikTok guy, but I am an Insta guy. And I'm looking forward to reading or watching 10 Signs I'm an Amazing Friend.
I love that.
10 Signs I'm a Selfish Partner. I just want
Mm.
to keep an eye on those. 10 Talks for a First Date, which would be
Mhm.
nice because I think they might apply to like the 18,000th date. 10 signs that I'm emotionally intelligent. Fail that one. 10 signs I'm a bad friend. 10 talks to check. So these are like, these are a lot of the topics that you're focused on. I mean, it's respectfully, how do I put this? You're not going deep here, right? In social world. Um, it's fun. You
Yeah.
know, it's like one of my favorite newspapers back in the day when I used to look at newspapers was USA Today. Loved
Mhm.
it. Like I really, honestly, I loved it because it had stuff like this. Like it was light. It was kind
Yeah.
of fun and easy to read. I'm curious about, and I want to be careful because the way I'm positioning this could come across as being insulting, and I certainly don't mean it to be. You've hit a huge audience. My question is, what is your goal with this audience, with these posts, like a post like this? What is the goal of the social media? Because I don't think, and please tell me if I'm right, I don't think you're going deep with anyone on social.
I think that um, the way that I've always looked at it is I have a long-term goal for my life. The goal that I have is that I want to be a little old 95-year-old woman shaking hands, making deals out every night, and making a difference in the world for women and girls. Reproductive health, education, and employment. Those are the three areas I want to focus on for women. And the thing is that there are ways that you can engage people on a lighter level that draw them in. So there's two kinds of posts, right? There's like the light post that goes viral and draws people in. And then there's the post that you make that's made for your own audience that goes deeper. And oftentimes I do that on stories, right? Like I'll get on and I'll talk about something that happened to me that day or an entrepreneurial experience that I had. And those are for my diehard fans. But you can't really get those fans in the door, at least that I've learned in a mass way, unless you tackle topics that are very popular that people want to know about.
Hmm.
So with my team, we're always focused on how can we get people in the door? And this is like for any entrepreneur that's listening. One of the biggest challenges that I have when I'm working with CEOs is that they always just want to tell their own stories and like talk about what's meaningful to them. And I have to flip it and say, no, you need to use reverse empathy. You need to understand what does your audience care about? What are the ways that they could feel engaged, or what's a headline that they could see and say, wow, I really need to know the answer to that. And that's how they find your videos. That's how they find you. And so if you can flip it and be able to say, what do people really want to hear? Or how could I engage them in a way that's meaningful to them? And then eventually, once they trust me, then I can talk about the things that are meaningful to me and the things that I want to advance in this world, or the things that I want to promote. So, for example, women's reproductive health is super important to me, but I can't like go out there and just, only talk about reproductive health, because I'm not going to get as massive a market as I will get if I just talk about things that are super relatable for everybody. So there's always a way to kind of get the distribution you want and then eventually focus on the things that are a little more meaningful to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. How do you balance, like, do you still work with patients one on one?
No, no, I haven't worked with clients. Like I still own the business.
Clients.
But for me, after I had my daughter, she's 12 now, that's when I really stopped seeing clients because it was, I was running, I already had probably 15 therapists at that point. So I was already kind of out trying to find a way for me to take a maternity leave. And then at that time, I was like, okay, I need something to do. And that's when I started creating my content.
Do you still have all those practices, the 5 practices?
I do. Yeah.
Where, and forgive me for getting so personal, but it's not that personal actually, but it's an entrepreneurial question. Um, where does most of your revenue come from? So if I'm not mistaken, you have the 5 practices. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some revenue there, and a fair amount of expenses too. You have the social stuff. I'd be curious if you can make money with that, or is that more of a channel, a funnel? Then you do things like speaking gigs. You're teaching for at the EMP program.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't mind, break down the revenue streams as a therapist who's become quite popular in pop culture. Like, where
Yeah.
does the revenue come from?
A lot of people ask that question. And I think it's a great question because people don't.
Really? I thought that was kind of a rude question to ask you
No,
about
it's
where
not
your
rude
money
at
comes
all.
from.
It's not
Okay.
rude at all. Yeah, and actually, like even at EMP, I'll be talking about how much money influencers can make for deals, because I think it's important for them to know when you have the distribution, how much, like how meaningful that can actually be. And so I'm not going to give actual numbers, but I can give you a little bit of a breakdown of how I make my money.
Yeah.
Um, the clinics it's a whole, so I have three corporations, right? The first one is obviously like the brick and mortar business. And that's my first business I ever had. That was the EO qualifying business that kind of got me in the door.
Yeah. I didn't mention that you're an EO member. It's
Yes,
and
correct.
I
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of guests on here are actually EO members, but it's
Oh,
probably the minority.
oh,
So
I love
and
that.
I just learned you were an EO member. I invited you on not realizing you were a member of
Oh,
EO. And then just in the green room, so to say, before
yeah.
we hit record, I learned you were an EO member. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love EO. And I think, well, I joined in 2019 for the EMP program when I was accepted. And it's so nice to have other people that I can talk to about the experiences that I'm having. And I've met some of my lifelong friends in EO. So I just love it. But I really believe in transparency when it comes to this world, because not a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space can have that like access to an actual influencer or somebody that's really doing it.
Hmm.
So obviously the brick and mortar business is one corporation. And then around 2019, I split the corps because I was doing media deals and things like that. But eventually the revenue, like from a tax perspective, I had to split it up. So my social media company is all of my brand deals, ad revenue, and um, any product sales that I have that are connected to products that I have that I sell on my channel. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. Um, a couple of years ago, I released my first little digital product. It was a quiz. And because of my following, 500,000 people took the quiz. And there was money tied to that. So it was a paid, like it was like a freemium quiz that they could pay for like the premium results. And we had around 2% of people bought the premium results. It was like 11.99 or something. So we made a really good
What,
amount.
sorry, what percent bought that?
2% spent
2%. Okay.
11.99 on this quiz. And so it went very well, right? And I wasn't even sure if anybody would take it, but this is the power of actually having an audience that's connected to you, is that you really are tuned into like what they want and like the things that they want to know about. So that went on for a couple of years. We stopped it now because I have some other things that I'm offering, but that business, and then so the brand deals are included in that as well. And for the brand deals, it really depends on the size of the brand and the size of your platform. So um, I don't know if I should mention like figures, but I mean
You're
some.
you're welcome to, but yeah, you don't need to. It's up to
Okay.
you.
Um, I think
It,
that
it always makes it more interesting. When if you like, I just did the math on that. If I'm not mistaken, that single quiz, that one quiz was somewhere around 150,000 in revenue for you. Just a quiz, one pop.
I didn't do anything. I think that, I mean, it did take us a little bit of time to set up, to be fair. And then I did, it was a really great quiz, right? It had a lot of awesome stuff in it. And I worked hard on it with my team. And also, I mean, we have all those email addresses now too, which is so wild, right? Just having that distribution is
Yeah.
incredible. But
Like a 500,000, you said, took the
yeah,
quiz. Yeah.
so those people get added to your community as well, and that has value as well.
Hmm.
But with the brand deals, so that really depends on your audience size. I would say like some of the influencers that I work with now as CEOs that have kind of grown their audiences, I mean, they could, with a couple 100,000 followers, you could probably get a deal in the 5 to 10K range to promote a product that you love. For me, I'm looking at around 15 to 30 per TikTok or per post. And then someone in my brother's range, I'm not going to cite what they are making, but someone with 15 plus is probably 100K and up per post. But again, it's not just like one little thing. It's usually something meaningful that a lot of work has gone into. And for me, of course, I will never promote a product that I don't think is right for my brand. Like I'm very picky. Mine are usually beauty brands like CoverGirl or Pantene or Neutrogena. So it's something that I've already used and I love. And the brand approaches and they say, "Hey, can you put this makeup on when you're doing your video and give us a little shout out?" And I'll say, "Yes, of course. Like I love your brand." So it's always
Boom,
a
20 grand.
thing,
Like just boom.
and it's
That's
that easy.
that's
But
wild. And so these are big brands, obviously. These are not startups. These are big
so,
brands
I mean,
generally.
you get approached by a lot of startups too, but for me, I mean, it's every time you do something, it's your time. And really, they're not paying for that one spot. It's not about the work that you put into it. It's about the massive platform that you built. So basically, they're compensating you for all of the prior hard work you've
Yeah,
done
for
to
sure.
build your channels. And
Yep.
so I don't look at it as like, oh, like, oh, I only had to do 20 minutes of work and I got this amount of money. For me, it's like, no, they're actually hugely benefiting
Hmm.
people that I've worked really hard to cultivate and gain their trust. And so I'm not going to put something out there unless I think it's really awesome and cool and I believe in it too.
So the revenue stream, what percentage of your revenue comes from the practice business,
Oh, I don't
give or
even,
take?
um, I want to say 50. Uh, then, so sorry, I've got a third business too. So the second business is the Ask Kimberly with all the brand deals and
Yeah.
product review.
And that's the social piece of it.
Correct.
The
Then
second one, yeah.
the third business I run is like, and this is the one that's really exploded just in the last year. And this is the little academy that I have with CEOs. And
Yeah,
so
so you mentioned that to me, and I meant to bring that up earlier. It's basically a class on creating a social presence.
exactly. So I teach classes. We hook people up with a producer, a producer from my team and an editor from my team. And we get them going on their social and they learn all the concepts. They learn everything that I did to grow to 3 million followers, how to go viral. And then they have each other as a community. So we do a cohort, like we usually have, an intake per cohort, like once a term, like once every quarter. And these entrepreneurs are going viral and they're building audiences of their own, kind of in the same way that I did. So I never thought that that would be a business on its own, but it got started because my friends from EMP, from EO, were literally asking me, like, how did you do it? We want to do it too. And so at first I was just doing Zooms like 5 times a week with people who wanted to learn from me. And I was doing them all just as a friend. And eventually I said, okay, guys, this is getting so exhausting. I need to just put you all in a class and start teaching you. And eventually people started approaching me that I didn't know. And then I started getting asked to speak at things. So it really just expanded from people wanting to learn what I did and then having some results.
What is that
Uh,
called? Like, how would somebody find that?
we call it the 10X group informally, but you can just reach out to me and I'll hook you.
What's the best way to get you?
My email, Kimberly@kmatherapy.com. Or you can write to me on Instagram. It's
And the website's kmatherapy.com also if you want to get access that way. I think there's a contact page. When I was looking around, I saw a contact page. And you can see all these cool videos of Kimberly on the TV shows over the years too. So it's about 50% your therapy practice, and the other half is a combination of this class and the social
exactly. That's
stuff.
about right. And also I would say that just completely the therapy practice is very stable. But the other businesses really like one deal could just, I mean, it's you really never know. And so last year was the first year I ran the 10X Academy and it exploded. So it's kind of hard to, I think this next year is going to be a really big year for us. But I love it. It's so fun and people are becoming successful. And actually, I was thinking about this. One of the guests that you had, Keith from Zen Man,
Oh yeah.
he was one of my early students. And he's kind of one of my claims to fame, actually, because I was sitting next to him in the EMP alumni program. And he said, "Hey, Kimberly, I heard you do social media. Like, could you look at these videos that I'm doing that this production company made for me?" And so I said, "Oof, move that, switch that, cut that, put this, take that out." And I was so savage. And that he always tells people, "Oh, she was so savage with me. She just like told me to rip it apart and do this and do that." But sure enough, a few months later, he went viral, and now he's got a really thriving social media audience on Instagram. So that was all because of the work that we did. And another really great EO legend is Peter Thomas. I don't know if you know Peter,
I
but
don't know Pete. No, Peter.
oh, okay.
What tell me about Peter?
So Peter is one of the original. He's the original master franchiser of Century 21 Canada.
Hmm.
Is a huge figure within EO because he actually started a lot of the Canadian chapters. He's a philanthropist now and does all these awesome Instagram videos. And he approached me a couple of years ago as well and said, "Hey, I really love what you're doing. Can you teach me and I'll mentor you in exchange for some of your lessons?" And he now has over 200,000 followers on Instagram as well. So, and it's all his fun videos.
All right, so I don't want you to give everything up here, but share with me what you can in, a few minutes. Like, what are if we were to start working together to build are you trying to let me rephrase the question. Are people trying to build their personal brand or are they trying to build their company's presence? For example, for me, I don't really have a need or an interest in promoting my personal brand, but man, I'd love to promote my company in the niche that we sell to. Now, my son, on the other hand, he's got these Hawaiian flannel shirts, the one I'm wearing right now, and like so they're long sleeve Hawaiian shirts, super cool. He, on the other hand, has a much bigger TAM, right? So his market is much, much bigger than my market. So he might want to create a personal brand centered around this concept of Kona, like the Kona brand Hawaiian flannels. What are you typically seeing when you work with people? Is it about the personal brand or is it about the company?
So primarily I do personal brand because I believe that your personal brand does transcend your company in the sense that if you sell or exit your company, you're giving up, like you're kind of giving up that brand identity and your personal brand is still there, right? Whether you have a social media presence or not, you still have a personal brand. People still know you, they still know whether they can trust you or not. And so I think your personal brand is really an extension of you, and any company that you own or are a part of or endorse is under that. Now, I do sometimes work with CEOs that don't want to be the face of their brand or don't want a personal brand, and that's also totally normal and okay. And so in that case, what we do, and we've done this and gone viral before, is that I'll make sure that they have a really smart intern or somebody who can face the camera, and then I just teach them how to speak and kind of be the face of the brand, right? Because not everybody wants to do it. Um, but I do think that there's a space as, I mean, and this is becoming a bigger and bigger topic within EO is AI. And with the advent of AI and its expansion, especially into companies and with CEOs, what we're seeing is AI taking a lot of those like boring and easy tasks or administrative tasks off people's plates and roles are being replaced. But one people are really leaning into the things that AI can't fully replace. And one of the only things that it can't fully replace is the human essence. And so the more we're able to lean into the things that make us us and make us human and that people can relate to, the more success we'll have because people don't buy from a robot. They don't buy from necessarily a website. They buy from people, right? So I would say if you want to promote your company, you can do that, but you're going to have more success under your personal brand because people are going to see your face and hear your message and relate to you more than they're going to be able to relate to some kind of graphic or intern.
So I got
So
this smirk on my face. I don't know if about halfway through that, I got this suspicious little smirk on my face because I started thinking about this company, Hey Gen. It's just one of the many companies that does these avatars, and so I can record a number of videos of myself, and then boom, in theory, it creates a version of me that can mimic my personality, my behavior. So then I type in some words and it'll say what I tell it to say. Um, it's not 100%, but it won't be long before it's pretty darn close to 100%. And then there's also like these social media. I'm sure you've seen these social. I can't think of one in particular. Like there's an actress that's a social media. I'm sorry, an AI actress.
Yeah, I love
There's,
those.
and
Those are
I've
so
seen
fun.
I've seen these other AI their images and videos. They're unbelievable,
Yeah, they
and
do feel very.
they're not real.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're going to have to deal with over time. And the truth is, there's so much competition out there anyway, as it is. Like when you get out there, I mean, when I started, it was a different space, and now it's a different space because the people you're competing against aren't even like the other EO members. It's literally the other millions of people that are online trying to get some kind of traction and distribution too. And so now there's going to be another layer of competition. But the way I like to work is it's not about rejecting concepts or tools. It's about accepting them and saying, how can we let these work for us? And so we use AI in all kinds of my social practices. And even if it's to come up with concepts or to help us with editing. And so in my classes, I try to embrace AI because I think that the only way that we're going to be able to we're still human. We can still do things that are meaningful, but if we don't accept the changes that are happening, then we will, I think,
Yeah,
ultimately.
you get
So,
left behind.
yeah.
So, okay, so can you share with me, if we're going to build out my social media presence, which I have pretty much, I go on vacation and I post a few posts and I get like 8 people that follow me and like, oh, that's cool. You had a nice vacation in Iceland, So like that's kind of the extent of my social media. And so what would you, if we were to build up my presence, if I wanted to, let's just say I want to build up this podcast, I want to
Yeah,
kind of build a name around the EO 360 podcast with
I
Dave
love that.
Will, and I want to make this as big as I want to try to get as close to Joe Rogan as I can.
Why
What
not?
would you recommend we do?
So the first thing I would want to do is have a sit down like 2 hours with you. I mean, the way
Coffee? Coffee, or are we thinking like a beer or like
whatever makes you comfortable. Because I mean, look, and this is the way I like to work is that I feel like your everyone's personality is really complex and interesting. And so for me, I'm going to be trying to pull out those things about you that make you special. I'm going to be listening to the way you talk. I'm going to help understand like why you started your business in the first place. What's your message? And actually like just what are the things that you do on a day-to-day basis? What kind of food do you like? Who's in your family? Some people are really into health and wellness. What are they eating? What are they working out?
yeah.
What are their hobbies? All those things. And that seems minute. It seems like it's not important. But what I've learned over time is that people love complex humans. 10 years ago, it was all advice all the time, and that's what I did. But as time went on, people wanted to know more about my life. They wanted to know about my family. They wanted to know what makeup I was wearing. And so there's now this need and acceptance for complex people being complex creatures and having more hobbies and interests and things that make you you. So I'm trying to understand that. And we did that with
All
Keith
right.
as well, like all the different things that kind of, make up his brand, meditation, business, Zen, Ikigai, all of those things. So, and his dogs and his family as well. So every entrepreneur has things that make them them, and they're all very different. So I'd be getting to know that.
So it's the bio. You look at the DNA of the person and you create you have some understanding of that. What's next?
Yeah. What we usually do with our founders is that we would then talk about top things that people ask you in your industry. And the way I like, see, for me, I'm an algorithm girl, right? Like I'm obsessed with algorithms. And even though social media is kind of a fun place, it's actually very scientific. So if we want to pierce the algorithm and start growing an audience, we have to do the things that the algorithm requires us to do in order to pierce it. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So the way that we do that, I have a format of video that I created called the Power of Three, and that's like a format I created that it goes the most viral every single time, and I've tested everything against the algorithms on each platform. So what we do is we find the top topics that people can speak about in their niche, and we create Power of Three videos about those things. And then we spend the first few months just answering those questions on their socials and testing against the algorithm which topics start to stick. And so
Hmm.
sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to annoy all of my friends and family. So we just start a new account and we are testing to see what people want to hear about from you, right? So what people might want to hear about from me could be different than what they want to hear about from you, just based on how we sound or look. We don't really know why, right? So the goal is to find out, what buzzwords, what patterns are we noticing in the algorithm, and also what are you enjoying talking about and doing?
And so
And
these are just public accounts, right? Like so if I wanted to create a separate one where I wasn't going to post about my family, my vacation, whatever, like and I again going with that theme of I want to be known as like the entrepreneur podcaster going after the Joe Rogan seat. I'd create some sort of public profile and
Mhm.
I just start posting these videos. I mean, obviously, it's not that simple, but I'd to do this DNA. I'd figure out, what it is, the audience around the topic that I want to be centered around is
Yeah,
asking about, and I create a bunch of videos, and then I just start posting them, or would I promote them, or would I put them into ads? Like, would I
no,
do paid advertising to get these out there?
no, I would definitely not do paid ads. I mean, people I know have done paid ads, but the problem is that those actually do mess up your traction in the algorithm. And I don't want to be against someone that's an expert at running paid ads, but it's a completely different game. And all of
Yeah.
my views have been organic views. So never an ad.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is because we actually want to know what people genuinely want to learn. And so it's just like Google, right? The top results are the best results. They're genuinely the best. And so when you're positioning yourself, the best way to get followers and to grow an audience is to help people with something or to teach them something, right? And then to kind of weave your interests in there. And so we're trying to hit the most viral topics and try to find the things that people just want to learn about from you.
Hmm.
And so I'm working with a really awesome entrepreneur right now who his daughter just chose a college, and it was just a conversation that we had like before one of our meetings. And I said, well, that's really interesting, and I kind of see him as like almost like a big brother, like cool uncle type, even though his focus is business. And so I'm like, lean into that. I like to see things like that in people and really understand how I think the internet is going to react to them. And so for him, I'm like, you got to lean into that cool uncle stuff because I think young people are really going to want to learn from you, life skills and life habits and things like that. And he's a cool dude, so I think that's really going to work for him.
Okay, so you start posting these things, and then now you're looking for the ones that trend, right? You're looking for the ones that get the hits.
Yeah, and when it's early, so I would suggest if you're going to start doing this, TikTok is probably the easiest place to do it because it's a little more anonymous for maybe someone that's a bit more anxious to do it. Um, but TikTok has great distribution, so it has a great way of like finding who wants to see your content. And you might have like no success. You might have 100 views, 100 views, 100 views, and then that's going on for a long time. And so we just keep trying new things. But usually what we see in my classes is that people hit, within the first couple of weeks, they have something that's popping off more than others. And so it might not be viral, but it's something that's showing us that there's
Hmm.
more traction over here than there is over here. So it's my job to pay attention to those things and to say, I'm working with an amazing woman who's a family law lawyer within EO. And every time she used the word narcissist, the video would blow up. And so I said, okay, well, let's do 5 more videos that say the word narcissist
People
because
love that word,
people
huh?
love it, right? And you can still put your great messages and all the things that they need to know in there, but just have the word narcissist in the title. And for some reason, it gets more distribution than if it doesn't. So it's about being attuned to those things is very, very important. And then when we find the things that are working, we drive them home, right? We really lean into the things that people love and what people want to hear about. And then we also so then after that, I'm sure you're going to ask what's coming next after we start seeing some traction. I mean, of course, this whole time we're doing great. All the scripts have to be really good and it has to be genuinely great content. But then we're working on tightening the actual content. So if it's a 90-second video, like every single one of those seconds has to be hooky. It has to be compelling enough that people will stay on your content and not click off. And so I love this. I love the art of like actually telling a great story and keeping somebody on your content. But most entrepreneurs like love to be very verbose. So it's important to kind of like take the story, make it concise, give people takeaways, and the higher percentage retention you have on that video, the more likely it is to go viral. So after that, we're just looking at that one number of retention. And if we can improve that every single week, you'll eventually grow.
Kimberly, I every now and then I have to do a video for my business. Like we're promoting something and I need to like, maybe it's a webinar, maybe it's something else we're doing, or there's a product release and it's a big one and I need to do like a 45-second video. I
Okay.
can never do a 45-second video. Like I cannot communicate something in less than 90 seconds. It's unbelievably difficult to say something short, to say
Yeah.
something with few words, especially for someone like me.
Yeah.
And that's the art of language, isn't it? Being able to say something really meaningful in just a few words.
I completely agree. I think most people have no idea how hard it is until they get on camera or they're in the class and they're saying, oh my gosh, like this is more challenging than I thought. It looks so easy when you do it, but it's an art, right? It's an art and a science. And so for me, I believe it or not, still script everything I do. I love it. I love the art. I love to write a killer script and then nail every single line. And I still film to this day line by line. I will not read all the lines one by one. I film every line to camera, shut the camera off, and then do the next line. And this is obviously on TikTok, so I'm using like the phone as a camera. But that is how I film it
And
because
then
I
you edit it all together?
I do, yeah, I just
How is it not choppy if you were to do that? I mean, I would think like it just and nothing would line up, or is that the editing
oh no,
tools
it's
that
just the
makes it?
editing. Yeah, it's just the editing. I mean, your voice is consistent throughout, and that's it's not a big deal at all.
Huh.
Um, But yeah,
What?
so that's how I love doing it because for me, I want to make sure every line, like I'm not repeating a single word. I'm not saying the same thing twice. It's like it's tight, right? Because that's what's going to get those views. And so again, like I said, it's a science. And at first, when people are starting, oftentimes we will just get them to do bullet points because doing line by line is too hard. It can be, it's like you're acting, right? So we will just say, okay, just focus on these 3 points and go, right? And then we edited it for them, just try to tighten it up. But if they can eventually get to line by line filming where it's super tight, then they're going to have better success.
So it's and Instagram is Kimberly Moffit.
Yeah.
That's Moffit.
Mhm.
Kimberly Moffit. And now I'm gonna have to go through and watch some of these, knowing that you're filming these line by line. I want to dice. I want to try to study it a little bit and see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, what's your handle? I think as we call it. What's your TikTok handle?
It's at ask_Kimberly.
Ask Kimberly. Ask underscore
Yeah,
Kimberly.
ask
Okay.
underscore.
So what are some of the mistakes you see people making? Like what if what should we avoid if we want to build a better social media presence?
Oh my gosh, Dave, you would not believe the number of people that, and I'm sure everybody who's listening has friends or family members who start doing social media, and it's just so cringe. And sometimes people have a hard time understanding why that content is cringe, why it makes them go, "Oh, like I don't really like this at all." And so there are actually three kind of main mistakes that people make,
Just
and
don't be cringe.
don't
Just
be
is that
cringe.
one?
Well,
Okay.
the thing is that
Noted.
it's
I'll
like
put that in my notes. Hey,
so
Dave,
cringe,
don't be cringe.
but we don't always know why it sounds or
I
looks
definitely
cringe.
don't know when I'm cringe and not cringe.
So the first thing is that the biggest mistake that you're going to see, and it's funny because it's not just other people. Like I've done it. I'm sure you're going to do it too if you get started. And you're going then because we've had this conversation now, you're going to check yourself and be like, "Whoops, I just made one of those three mistakes. Start again." Right. So the first mistake people make is that I call it that they show, not tell. So what that might look like is they are on camera and they say, so instead of just getting to what they're going to talk about, oh, like the 3 psychological ways to read someone's body language, they'll say, hey guys, I'm here in my office right now and I've got my background, I have my coffee here, and I'm just getting settled in for a great day.
Cut
Now,
to
let
the
me
chase.
tell you. Exactly. Like clearly you can see I'm in an office and clearly you can see I'm holding a coffee because I'm on video. So I don't need to tell you the things that I'm doing because you can already see it. But people make that mistake when they first get started. It's very
Get
natural.
to it, man. Get
Yeah,
to
just
it.
get to the point, right? And the second thing is the millennial pause. So are you a millennial, Dave? I'm a
No. Thank you for asking. No. No, reality bites here, man. I'm a Gen Xer.
I'm an elder millennial, so I feel like I still it's just right in that little group.
I
But
love that you just called yourself an elder.
I'm an
That's awesome.
elder millennial. So
Okay, elder millennial is different. So, okay, so what is the millennial pause?
so if you are a millennial or older,
Yeah.
you're going to make this mistake, like guaranteed, your first few times that you film. And so the joke is that if you are a millennial, when someone goes to take a picture of you, you pose like, right? It's like this thing, like the younger generations, they're more cool.
Dad, this is a video. You know how many times in my life I've heard that? Dad, this is a video.
Exactly. We're just like, but even for a picture, we're just like, we're very stiff, right? And that's kind of our generation because we're very posy and formal. So when someone, so if you are a millennial and you're taking a video of yourself, this it's going to look like this. Hi guys, how are you? So there's like a big 1 second gap between when the camera starts and when you start
You have
talking. And
this like
that one
fake
second
smile, open mouth. Yeah,
literally. And so when by the time you start talking, you've already lost so much of your audience because they are gone. Because in that 1 second, people, I mean, you literally have milliseconds to capture someone's
that's
attention
crazy.
online.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
there's just no way that you can get the traction you want with that. And then the final thing people do is that they ramble. So they're again, like it's kind of like
Oh
the
yeah, I'm a
initial.
rambler. I am a rambler. That's
So
why
you
if
get
we meet, it's going to be over a coffee, not a beer, because beer makes me ramble more. Yeah,
yeah, and rambling.
caffeine's not very good either, Kimberly, for my rambling.
And honestly, rambling's fine if it's socially, right? But if it's on social media, it's like the curse of death because the algorithm is going to hate you, and we don't want that, right? We're playing only to the algorithm, so we need to get those keywords in like the first second, really. So we don't want to hear about your day. We don't want to hear about as much as we want to be your friends. Those are things that you would say for your stories, like your Instagram or TikTok stories. But if you're posting on your feed, you want to make sure that you're immediately getting to the point and you're not talking about everything else that you did that day. So it's similar to the showing and not telling, but it's more about not going on a wild tangent before you talk about the promotion that you have or the sale that you have or the event. People need to know there's an event coming up, and that's the first thing you say. Or you can talk about something that's relevant that the people coming to the event might want to know about and say, if you want more information, come to the event. And that's a much better segue than just what most people will do.
So this is interesting. Something I've been thinking about more recently is when to say no. What to say no to, and it's very related to what you're talking about here. Cutting to the chase essentially is just saying no to a whole bunch of things. Like say no to the coffee, say no to the background, say no to that millennial pause. Just like get right to it. The event's coming up in a week. Like get to the topic.
Yeah, and again, what we were talking about earlier is reverse empathy. So if you've got an event coming up, you're really trying to focus on what did the people coming to the event care about? What do they want to know? Is there something that the event is? It's like, have you, so something I might say is have maybe it's for the therapy practice that we're running an event. I might say, have you always been curious about therapy, but you've never really taken that first step? Like trying to connect with them. And someone might say, yeah, that's me. Well, if so, keep listening because I have a really cool resource for you that you might want, and it's free. So that's the kind of thing that you're trying to connect with something that somebody needs and wants. And even though I have something to promote, I'm not talking about my stuff. I'm talking about what you might care about, and then connecting my offer into that.
Kimberly, we didn't even get into talking about relationships. I mean, I sincerely was planning on spending half of this time talking about relationships. I've got like a dozen questions that I want to ask you about relationship, but we're not going to get into all that. And dating apps. You mentioned Match.com. Let's talk about that for a second, and then we're going to wrap it.
Sure.
Match.com. So you worked with Match, not for Match, but you worked with Match. They hired you for something. What is your, assuming you're not connected with them anymore, how do you feel about dating apps? And what is my real question here? My real question, I think, is talk about rambling. My real question is like, how do people that are single date? Like, how do you date right now? Because it seems like dating apps are the way, but I've heard so many bad things about dating apps that it doesn't, I don't know if it's realistic that you can meet people these days through a dating app. How do you meet people?
complicated space. And I loved my work with Match. So I was their Canadian spokesperson for 6 years. And so I still am a huge supporter. But even since then, I mean, I started working with them before dating apps were even as popular as they are today. It was a website back then, not even an app. And so I've always believed in opening up your prospects when it comes to dating. And I think that even though, and hear me out because I know this is complicated and anyone that's on an app is going to find this, maybe it's challenging, but back in the day, we would be relying on events to connect us with people. So it would be like a local dance or our high school or our job. Before that, we didn't have anything that would really connect people. I mean, a local matchmaker, our parents would be scouting for us. So the opportunities to find someone that was a true match for us were quite low. So we usually would just find someone in our community and settle down, right? Or someone that we know or someone we went to school with. And so I think that even though dating apps are complicated, they still allow us to find a potential match. They expand, like, in business, we always talk about scaling. Dating apps expand the scale of how we're able to recruit for a partner, similar to how, like, Indeed.ca would expand the reach that we have when we're
Yeah.
hiring. So it's
Yeah.
not the same thing, obviously, when looking for a partner, but I still believe in apps. I just think there's some smart ways to navigate them now that can help prevent things that are not ideal or wasting your time, which we don't want.
Hmm. All right. Let's there's a whole rabbit hole I'm gonna step over right now. We are not gonna go down that one. Man, that'd be right there. It'd be a great topic. We should have you back for this for a series, a
I would
therapy
love
series. You
that.
could be my online therapist and we could talk
Love
about
it.
dating in case my wife leaves me. Um, hey Kimberly, thank you so much. Kimberly Moffit. It's kmatherapy.com. I'm really intrigued by that social presence class, and when I'm ready to take this podcast to the next level, I think that's probably the next step is to send you a message and get into your social. What are you calling it? What is the name?
Call it the 10X class, but
Oh,
it's
the
really
10X. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Kimberly, thanks so much. And your email again? What was the best way to reach you?
It's Kimberly at kmatherapy.com.
Kimberly, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate the
Sure,
time.
Dave.